Happy recording. Good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Kasarian, and we are back recording just a bit of a tutorial series on how I do my encoding and recording. So, last episode we did the actual how I'm recording, what I do, what I work with, the basic program I just used to do the actual screen capture. So now, why don't we take a look at how I actually do the encoding portion of the video. So, you guys noticed that the raw footage on these videos is gigantic. Alright, so it's about 15 gigs on that. That's a bit smaller than the Space Engineers videos are. I can't just upload that to YouTube. And besides, if I did, it would be terrible quality. Absolutely terrible quality. So what I have to do is I have to encode it, and I have to do some post-production. Now, I don't do a lot of post-production, but basically what I end up doing is cleaning up the audio, stitching them all together, especially, I can't upload 1, 2, 3, 4 separate videos for a single episode. You guys will get fed up with that. So I have to stitch them together, I have to fix the audio a little bit, and I basically have to look at, okay, how are we doing, time-wise, I can cut out some sections and I can do some edits to the general quality of the video. What do I use to do that? Well, I use a program called Sony Vegas, which I'm now dragging into screen right here. And you guys are probably already going, oh my gosh, Cass, that's wicked complex looking. What's going on here? How do I do any of this? Well, don't worry about it. It's not actually that bad to work with. It's actually very easy to work with. So while I'm talking, I'm just going to be pulling. Just remember I have a second monitor here, which is why some stuff isn't showing up here that should be. I can drag that over as well. If you're getting serious about YouTubing, by the way, I'd highly recommend getting a second monitor, because it makes this stuff a lot easier especially. So let me pull this back over as I'm getting ready to encode, because I want to show you guys something. So I just had a moment where I couldn't remember whether I'd encoded a video or not. So I'm going to have tower. Okay, so this is where things get tricky, because I actually need to move some videos over here. You can see this folder, batch render output. Yep, I was exactly correct. So now I can see that I have encoded up to episode 13, but I haven't encoded 14 yet. So that's what we're going to work on right now. So I'm just going to highlight these two. Highlight these two and click and drag them down onto my Vegas editing unit. And now if my computer doesn't flip out at me, come on. There we go. Alright, sorry about that. Vegas decided to use up most of my processing power for a couple seconds. This actually relates to something I forgot to mention in the last video, which is you don't want to have your general content. You don't want to have your game being played from the same place that you're encoding your videos, you're recording your content to. Because it uses up a lot of bandwidth. Not bandwidth in terms of internet usage, but bandwidth in terms of how much data can be put onto or pulled off of a hard drive at one time. You remember some of my very early videos, if you've ever gone back and watched them, I'd have these sudden, random, sporadic slowdowns. I'd get maybe 30 seconds of recording done, and all of a sudden it would get very choppy. The reason for that was that I was running out of hard drive buffer, or bandwidth, basically. My computer's hard drive just couldn't manage to get the data on and off in a timely manner, so it would slow everything down on me. So you want to be encoding to a different place than you want to be recording to a different place you're pulling your data off of. So you want your games and your operating system to be separate from the folder you're using for all of your YouTube stuff. Just general knowledge. So now we have this in Vegas. Now what do we do with it? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this entire thing here. Okay? And just off camera, I'm going to pull this back up and just use them as a reference. And I'll pull that back up and push that over. There we go. Now let's reopen Vegas. And now that I have the entire track highlighted, I'm just going to hit R. And that creates a new region. Because what I'm doing, and now I'm naming the region, Space Engineers Survival, Episode 14, Gantry Work. And now that's all been labeled as a single continuous region. And let me show you why. So I'm also going to pull in YouTube Tutorial Part 1. Okay, that was about a 10-minute long clip. And then I'm going to highlight it, hit R again. How to YouTube Part 1 Traps and recording. So now I have these two regions, and they're two completely different videos. And let me show you why I'm doing this. Well, I'll get there, actually. So now, it's going to be hard for me to do this, because this video is going to get cleaned up in post-production anyways. But suffice to say, if I played this video for you right now, and played the audio on this track, you'd actually have a hard time listening to it, because I have my computer sitting next to me. And there are 6 very large fans in there that create a horrible whining sound. So let's take a look at this. We want to get rid of that whining sound. So I'm going to right-click on the track, the audio track, and hit Open Copy in Audio Editor. And what's going to happen is that this is going to open up Audacity. And Audacity is an audio editing program that I use to clean up my videos. And you can see it right here. Welcome to Audacity. Please, please don't be intimidated. It's very basic and very easy to do what we're going to do right here. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit and see... Okay. So see you have my talking here, right? Let's find a good section. You have my talking right here, right? I'm talking here and I'm talking here, but there's noise in the middle. So if I just select this bit, right, and I hit play, hear that little bit of noise? You may not. It may get cleaned out in my post-editing on this video. But now I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to go to Effect, and I'm going to keep this area highlighted. And you don't want any of your talking or any of your game noise to be caught in that selection box. And then I'm going to go to Noise Removal, and I'm going to hit Get Noise Profile. And then I'm going to hit Control-A to select the whole thing, and Control-R. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to go through, it's going to get the noise profile that it generated, and it's going to remove the noise from the entire track. And you'll actually be able to see it in the waveform in front of me. All right, so let's just take a look as this happens. All right. See how it's much smoother here, and it's a little bit smoother over there? Well, how are you guys doing? There's still a little bit of noise, so I could actually do it again over here. I could go Effect, Noise Removal, Get Noise Profile, Control-A, Control-R. Control-A selects everything, Control-R repeats the previous whatever you did. And with the Noise Removal tool, it repeats it, and when it repeats, it automatically goes into removal mode versus sample mode. So it's taking a little bit longer this time, probably because it's doing a bit of a finer search. And this time we've gotten most of the noise out of the video. All right. So now that we have this entire thing selected, we're going to go into Normalize. And what Normalize does is it basically smushes everything. And it makes everything, tries to equalize the volume. And then we're going to go in and we're going to open up the compressor. We're going to run the compressor. What the compressor is going to do is it's going to try and... So what Normalize does is it shrinks everything down. What compressor does is it shrinks down the highs and it brings up the lows. And you can actually see that result here in the waveform. So now we're going to go to File. We're going to export it. And we're actually going to export it directly back into the same folder that we imported it from. You can see when Vegas did the export and opened it up in here, it actually created a copy, and we're actually going to overwrite that. So just hit Save, Replace Yes, and I got this Edit Metadata field, so I'm going to click OK. And now it's going to export the whole project as a .wav file. All right, same thing it was encoded in originally. And now we can close this out. No, don't show the changes. And we're going to reopen this, and you can see it's rebuilding the peak file for that audio. And so now it's loaded in the new audio file. So just to make sure that we all got that, we're going to repeat that another 2 times. And I can do it actually a lot faster than what I was showing you, because I know what I'm doing. I do this quite a bit. And it doesn't take that much time, but it really improves the quality of your video. You don't have a lot of background noise, you don't have crazy stuff going on, computer whirring, maybe static on your line, and you can really chop out a lot of the stuff that makes your videos sound, to be honest, crappy and unprofessional. That did a pretty good job on the first pass. We don't have to repeat it. Normalize it again. And it really improves the quality of your videos and makes your videos a lot better to watch. And it's one of the big advantages to using a program like Vegas. I use Vegas because that's what was recommended to me by a couple friends of mine who are YouTubers. Adobe Premiere is also an option. Unfortunately, there really aren't any good open source There aren't any good open source alternatives. I know the guys at VLC were trying to make one, but it just kind of died. But I'll admit, if you watch my early videos, those are all made Windows Movie Maker with no post-production in them. Those were all Windows Movie Maker. And yeah, that was bad. That was a stage, and now that I'm out of that stage, I and my viewers are very happy that I'm out of that stage. Alright, so this is a bit of a different file because there's not a lot of stuff, but you can still see there's some noise. So we'll just go, and we'll just chip this away, noise removal, get the profile. Generally, the larger the noise section, the better the results are going to be. So the larger your sample section, the better it's going to remove all that content, all of that noise that you don't want. The other thing you'll notice is that I'm trying to moderate my voice in the pre-record, because what you don't want to do is there's a limit to how loud your microphone can record and have it produce vaguely decent audio. You don't want to exceed that limit. If you do, you start getting like crackles and pops, and it starts sounding tinny because your microphone can't record all the noise that's hitting it. So you kind of want to moderate your voice, and you want to kind of talk at a normal conversational level. And that really just depends on how sensitive your microphone is, how much interesting. Oh, I saved it to the wrong file. That's why. So let's go back up here. There we go. I knew there was a reason I wasn't getting the warning. And you just want to make sure you make sure that you're not overloading your microphone and kind of oversaturating your audio. So just like a camera gets oversaturated with light, you can oversaturate your microphone as well. And if you have to bring up your audio in post-production, it's always better to increase your volume in post-production than it is to radically decrease your volume in post-production. There's a limit to how much you can decrease the volume. There really isn't as much of a limit with increasing it. So now we have these two files in here. Well, what are we going to do now? Well, now we have to render them. And for this, I'm using a program called Render Assistant, which is actually an add-on to Vegas. So what I can do is I can render. You can see I'm rendering by region. So each of these regions is going to be pulled as a different file. When I put this video in, it'll also be put in as a different file. Okay? Pretty simple, pretty basic, really easy. So let's take a look at what my actual render settings are. So let's go in here as render as, and let's take a look at Kazarian YouTube format. Okay. It's not too bad. Let's customize the template. Now, I am encoding out to MP4 AVC AAC, which is kind of a progressive internet streaming. It's a streaming format. YouTube likes to take in as a streaming format, and if you upload as a streaming format, YouTube will actually start to process your video as you upload it. Okay? So what I have it set to here is it's progressive, so it's 720p. Notice 720, 1280 by 720, progressive or P. My frame rate is 29.970 NTSC. That's fine. That's perfectly fine by me. And I'm using a variable bit rate between 16,000 bps, or 16 kbps, and 5 kbps. So what it's going to do is it's going to go through. In a lot of the videos, you don't need a high bit rate. All right, so let's say I'm recording this, for example. Most of my screen isn't moving right now. It doesn't need to be an incredibly high video and high bit rate, because a lot of stuff on my screen just isn't moving. Whereas if I had it set to a constant bit rate, well, then we'd have an issue. File size would be very closely tied to how much content there, or rather how long the video is, rather than how much stuff is moving on the screen. All right? I'm not certain what number of slices does, or number of reference frames, so we're just not going to go there. Pixel aspect ratio, I just leave it to set to 1. And then render using CUDA if available. CUDA cores are a special type of core on your graphics card, and it really speeds up your download setting, your encoding, excuse me. Audio, 96,000 hertz and 384,000 BPS. I think that's perfectly fine. System settings, it doesn't matter. You can hit check GPU to see if you have CUDA cores. You can see CUDA's available. project settings, it just uses the project settings, okay? It does not care. I don't change color space. I don't change anything else. It just stays as it is, okay? So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to cancel this. All I have to do now is hit this button for Start Render. And it's going to use my main concept AVC encoder to encode these two videos out and dump it in that batch render folder. And from there, it's just a question of uploading. So that's just kind of the nitty-gritty, basic, quick run-through of how I encode my videos and how I process my videos and get them ready for you guys to watch. One more thing I want to show you. You may notice, if you look at my preview screen over here, that these videos are pretty dark. Take a look at that, right? You can't see a single thing. That's because, for some reason, when Vegas encodes, it darkens the video, and I don't know why it does it. Because you can see, if I probably pulled up that same image in the actual video file on my desktop in VLC, it would be fine. It would be fairly bright. But just for some reason right there, it just darkens it out. It'll be the same way on my renders. So I want to see this button here. I want to click this. All right. This brings up my plugin selector. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Sony Brightness and Contrast, and I'm going to open that up. Okay. And I'm just going to go to my YouTube preset. And you can see I already have one. It brightens the screen up a little bit, makes it a little bit more viewable. So let's see. Default with nothing. YouTube video with it increased. So you can see there's a little bit more definition and contrast in there. Now, I can change this up quite a bit, actually. I mean, I could turn it all the way down. I can bring it up. But you gotta be careful, because it does start to whitewash the video at a certain point. You know, I can increase the brightness. I can turn this down, maybe. I can up the contrast and up the brightness. Which actually gives you a slightly better result, come to think of it. Ooh, that gives it a really trippy look, actually. So you just kind of want to play around with this stuff and just kind of see, because that looks pretty good. I actually like that. I like that a lot, actually. Maybe a little washed. Right about there actually looks pretty good. Kind of like that, actually. I think I'll use that in the future. See, things you learn. But you kind of have to play around with all these settings and kind of get used to them. Now, you can also do a master adjust on your quality over here. The other thing you can do is you can come over to here, and this is your audio system, your audio editing program. And what you can do is I can do track noise gate, track EQ, and I can also do a track compressor. So what the track compressor allows me to do is compress down my video. All right, so let's do recording standard, and let's close that out. So what it's going to do is, when it actually encodes this, it's actually going to compress the audio across the tracks. Okay, so it's going to try and make it about the same volume all the way across the board. And I can change my input and my output gains and all that stuff, but it's really not, you know, a huge big deal. But it just kind of flattens out the audio across all of my videos. So it's not too bad. Anyways, guys, that about wraps this up. If you want more in-depth videos on how to use Vegas, whatever, I may produce some. I don't tend to use Vegas a lot, as you can tell. I do a lot of my video cuts and edits in stream as I'm recording. So this has been Mr. Kasarian. I want to thank you guys for watching. And as always, guys, happy recording.